All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the show. For all those out there dreaming of leading the RBI or maybe shaking things up at SEBI, this one's for you. Ever wonder how India manages to pull off those huge GE infrastructure projects and still keep those crucial social programs running?
Yeah, it's a lot to juggle, right?
Big time.
Hmm.
Well, today we're diving deep into something called PRAGATI. It's like mission control, but for India's development. And guess who's at the helm?
Let me guess, the Prime Minister.
You got it. But before we get into it, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss our future deep dives. And don't forget that bell icon for notifications. Okay, so PRAGATI, it stands for Proactive Governance and Timely Implementation. This is a pretty official, right? But what's it actually doing? What kind of results are we talking?
Think big. We're talking over 340 projects accelerated, with a price tag of, get this, over $205 billion.
Wolf, that's serious money.
Oh yeah, that's more than some countries' entire GDP. Think highways, railways, power plants, even social programs that touch millions of lives.
Okay, color me impressed. But how does a digital platform do all that? What's the magic formula?
It's a mix of things. First, Pragati uses tech brilliantly. Video conferencing that connects the PMO with ministries and state governments, real-time data dashboards. They even use geospatial mapping to track projects on the ground.
So no more dusty files lost in some office. Everyone's literally watching progress in real time.
Exactly. But the tech's only part of it. What's really unique is the Prime Minister himself is involved. He's chairing meetings, reviewing progress, stepping in to solve problems. That level of leadership and accountability is pretty rare.
That's hands-on governance for sure. But coordinating all those different groups across states, wouldn't that be a logistical nightmare? Especially with different political parties in different states, it seems like a recipe for gridlock.
You'd think so, Anio. But that's the fascinating part. Pragati actually creates this feeling of like Team India. Everyone, ministries, state governments, they're all focused on that shared goal of national development.
So cutting through the red tape and the politics and just getting things done.
Exactly. The case study even has a great example, the Innor-Thiruvallur-Bengaluru gas pipeline. It was stuck with land acquisition issues across 3 states. But through Pragati, the Prime Minister stepped in, they formed a single agency to handle the disputes. And bam, project finished this January.
Now that's impressive. PRAGATI sounds like a problem-solving machine. But let's talk about the projects themselves. The study highlights infrastructure as a big focus, right?
Do, absolutely. Pragati's been huge for building up India's infrastructure. We're talking 50,000 kilometers of national highways built or upgraded, airport capacity doubled. These are the kind of projects that normally take years, even decades.
So it's not just speeding things up, it's taking on those massive projects that are key for India's economic growth.
Yeah.
Those things that impact everything from transportation to energy.
You got it. And they don't shy away from the tough ones either, the ones that have been stuck for years because of bureaucratic roadblocks. The case study mentions this coal mine project, the Pakri Barwadih coal mine in Jharkhand. It was stalled for over a decade.
Wow, a decade, that's a long time.
It is. But after the Prime Minister got involved through Pragati in 2016, they actually got it finished in 2019.
So it's like PRAGATI shines a light on these stalled projects, brings in the top-level leadership to clear the way. I bet it saves a ton of time and money, too.
Oh, absolutely. Time IS money, especially on projects this big. And there's research from places like the RBI showing there's a huge return on investment when it comes to infrastructure. For every rupee invested, you're potentially looking at a GDP gain of 2.5 to 3.5 rupees.
Okay, so it's not just about getting these projects done faster. It's about giving the whole economy a boost. But it's clear PRAGATI is about way more than just roads and bridges. We've focused on infrastructure, but the source material also mentions social programs, right? What kind of initiatives are we talking about?
Well, this is where Pragati's impact goes beyond just the physical stuff. Think about the Jal Jeevan mission. It aims to provide safe drinking water to every rural household in India. It's massive, and Pragati is helping it move much faster.
So using tech and efficient government to actually improve people's lives. Pretty powerful stuff.
Absolutely. And it's not just the big picture initiatives either. Pragati is also focused on making everyday government services run smoother.
Like what? What kind of services are we talking about?
Well, the study actually uses passport issuance as an example. Remember all those complaints about delays and bureaucracy?
Oh yeah, I've heard the stories.
Well, it was raised in a Pragati meeting, and the Ministry of External Affairs actually streamlined the process. They got the average processing time down from 16 days to just 7.
Wow, that's cutting it in half. It shows that even small changes can have a big impact on people. Clearly, PRAGATI is a powerful tool for change in India. But the study also says other countries could learn from it too. What are some of the key takeaways, especially for developing countries, that they could use for their own development strategies?
Well, one of the biggest takeaways is the power of a unified approach to government, working together. Pragati shows that by bringing different levels of government together, making things transparent, and using tech for better coordination, nations can actually overcome those bureaucratic hurdles and get things done.
It's about breaking down those silos and working as a team, right?
Exactly. And another big lesson is the importance of strong leadership and accountability. The Prime Minister being actively involved in Pragati sends a strong message. Development is a top priority, and everyone's accountable for results.
That's crucial. Having a great plan is one thing, but without strong leadership and accountability, it's likely to fizzle out.
Absolutely. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Last time we talked about Pragati's impact on India's development, and the Prime Minister's role in all of this. It's pretty fascinating how leadership uses tech to drive real change.
Yeah, it is. The way Pragati brings together technology, collaboration, and that high-level leadership.
Yeah.
It's remarkable. But you mentioned a whole digital ecosystem that makes it all possible, right?
Right.
I'm really curious about that, how it all works.
Well, India's quietly become a leader in digital governance. Along with Pragati, there are platforms like PM Gati Shakti and Parivesh. They're totally changing how infrastructure development happens.
Okay, I've heard those names, but I could definitely use a refresher. Let's start with PM Gati Shakti.
Mhm.
What is it, and how does it fit into everything?
Think of it like a master plan for connectivity. It's a giant digital map bringing together infrastructure projects from all different ministries and departments. It uses tech like geospatial mapping and data analytics, to plan and execute projects way more efficiently.
So like a bird's eye view of all the infrastructure projects across the country, helping to avoid those conflicts and delays.
Exactly. And the best part, it helps find potential problems before they even happen. The case study talks about how they used PM Gati Shakti to adjust the route of the Pune-Bengaluru Expressway, for example. By using data and simulations, they minimized the environmental impact and actually saved money, all thanks to better planning up front.
Okay, I can see how that would be incredibly valuable. But how does this connect back to Pragati? Are they working together?
Absolutely. Remember, Pragati is like the command center, right? It provides oversight and direction. So let's say PM Gati Shakti flags a problem, maybe a land acquisition issue for a new railway line. That info goes straight to Pragati, and the Prime Minister can address it directly in a meeting, bringing in the right people from those ministries and state governments.
So it's not just watching, it's about actively stepping in to keep those crucial projects moving.
Exactly. Breaking down those silos, fostering that Team India approach we talked about. And it's not just for infrastructure either. Take the Jal Jeevan mission, for instance. PM Gati Shakti helps planners figure out the best routes for laying water pipelines, taking into account existing infrastructure and minimizing disruption.
That's really interesting. Sounds like a well-coordinated effort between these platforms, all working toward a common goal.
It is. But there's another platform I want to mention, PRAGATI. This is where India's focus on sustainability really shines. PRAGATI is basically a one-stop shop for environmental and forest clearances.
So instead of developers running around to different agencies, they could submit all their environmental assessments and applications through this one portal. I bet that saved a lot of time.
A ton of time. The study says clearance timelines have gone from an average of 600 days down to something like 70 to 75 days. And for forest clearances, it's even faster. Central approvals now take just 20 to 29 days.
Wow, that's incredibly fast. But doesn't faster clearance mean they're not looking as closely? What about making sure these projects are environmentally sound?
That's a great question, and Parivesh actually addresses that. It uses automation and digitized workflows to make the process more efficient, but also more transparent and accountable.
So it's not just about speed. It's about using technology to make the system more robust and less prone to, well, errors or corruption.
You got it. And remember, delays aren't good for anyone. They drive up costs and can actually have negative environmental consequences too.
Okay, so we have PM Gati Shakti for smart planning, Parivesh for efficient environmental clearances, and Pragati leading the charge, bringing it all together. Any other key players in this digital ecosystem?
Yes. There's one more crucial piece through the Project Monitoring Group, PMG portal. This is like the central nervous system. It's a giant dashboard that pulls in real-time data from all these other platforms, giving a comprehensive view of all those infrastructure projects happening across India.
So like a live feed of the nation's development, all in one place.
Exactly. And get this, the PMG portal is now using artificial intelligence. It can analyze all that data, spot trends, and even predict potential problems before they happen.
Whoa, talk about proactive governance.
It's pretty amazing. And all of these platforms are public, by the way. Citizens can track the progress of projects, see how their tax money is being used, and even hold the government accountable for its promises.
That's a fantastic example of how technology can empower both governments and citizens. It's not just about making things faster, it's about transparency, accountability, and being more responsive to people's needs.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's what makes the PRAGATI model so interesting. It's a true example of effective governance in the digital age.
I'm really glad we got to unpack all of this. It's given me a whole new perspective on the scale and complexity of India's development efforts. But something tells me there's even more to this story. What's coming up in part 3 of our deep dive?
In part 3, we'll switch gears a bit and focus on the human side of PRAGATI. The leadership style that makes it successful. We'll talk about some of the challenges and criticisms, and also look at what other countries can learn from this approach.
Welcome back to the deep dive. In parts 1 and 2, we really dug into PRAGATI, India's digital governance platform, and how it's changing the country's development. From speeding up infrastructure projects to making those everyday services smoother, we've seen its impact everywhere. We even got into that amazing digital ecosystem that supports it all. Platforms like PM Gati Shakti, PRAGATI, and the PMG portal. But there's another key piece we haven't fully explored yet, the human side of things.
You're right, the human factor is crucial. While the technology itself is impressive, it's really the leadership that makes PRAGATI work. The Prime Minister being so personally involved isn't just symbolic, it's a key part of the platform. This hands-on approach has a ripple effect throughout the government, setting a clear expectation for accountability and creating a sense of urgency.
So it's not just about building a fancy platform and hoping for the best. You need someone at the top who's actively pushing for results and clearing those roadblocks. But wouldn't that level of involvement be, I don't know, super time-consuming for someone like the Prime Minister with so many responsibilities?
Well, that's where PRAGATI's design comes in. It's all about efficiency. The platform gives the Prime Minister a really clear, concise snapshot of how projects are progressing, highlighting just the most critical issues that need his attention. It's not about micromanaging every detail, it's about strategically stepping in where it matters most.
So PRAGATI acts like a filter, making sure the Prime Minister's time is used strategically to address those big challenges. It's amazing how it combines high-level decision-making with a data-driven approach. But this centralized approach has also gotten some criticism, right? What are some of the concerns people have raised?
One worry is that this top-down style could weaken the independence of state governments. Some critics say it gives too much power to the central government, maybe stifling local innovation and decision-making. And there are concerns about relying so heavily on technology, especially for those who might not have access to digital infrastructure or the skills to use these platforms.
That's a really important point. Digital inclusion is key. We can't leave anyone behind. Are there any efforts to address these concerns?
Oh, absolutely. The government knows about these challenges and is taking steps to address them. For example, there are big efforts across the country to improve digital literacy and internet access, especially in rural areas. They're also working on capacity building, training government officials at all levels on how to use these platforms effectively.
So it's about finding that balance, right? Harnessing the power of technology while making sure everyone can access it and benefit from it. Sounds like a complex undertaking, but it's great to see that they're making those efforts. Now, even with those challenges, PRAGATI has seen a lot of success, and the world is paying attention. What lessons can other countries learn from this model, especially those facing similar development challenges?
For one thing, it shows how technology can be a really powerful tool for good governance, especially when it comes to tackling those large-scale development projects. PRAGATI proves that by embracing digital tools, working together, and prioritizing accountability, nations can overcome those bureaucratic hurdles and reach their goals more efficiently.
It's about working smarter, not harder. Right. And I imagine the impact goes beyond just efficiency. Doesn't this kind of transparency also build trust between the government and its citizens?
Absolutely. When people can actually see how decisions are being made and follow the progress of projects that affect their lives, it builds a sense of ownership and accountability. It shows that the government is serious about keeping its promises.
That makes a lot of sense. But wouldn't copying a system like this in other countries require a lot of resources and a real change in how they govern?
There's no doubt it takes commitment and effort. But as the case study points out, those long-term benefits are worth it. More reliable infrastructure, better public services, increased public trust. Those are outcomes that every nation wants. It's about making smart investments that will benefit people for generations to come.
This deep dive into Pragati has been incredibly insightful. It's given me a whole new understanding of how complex development is and all the innovative ways technology can be used to drive progress.
It's been fascinating for me, too. Pragati isn't just a digital platform, it's a model for how we can approach governing in the 21st century. It's a powerful example of what's possible when we combine technology, collaboration, and strong leadership.
It definitely gives us a lot to think about. If a system like this can transform India's development, could it also be the key to tackling global challenges like climate change or poverty? It's a really thought-provoking question, and one that I hope our listeners will keep exploring.
I agree. And speaking of our listeners, thank you all for joining us on this deep dive. We really encourage you to dig deeper into the source material. You might be surprised by what you find.
Absolutely. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.